Well, I would say, first of all, as I sort of briefly said at the beginning of the talk, this talk is sort of a fusion of two different things. It's a fusion of some ideas that I presented in my MA thesis, and it's a fusion and of some discussions from my present PhD project. But the general point that I'm heading at, the general thing I'm trying to do is with talking about analogies and talking about the ensemble analogy and how we can better that, is to try and give people a different framework of thinking about coordination processes and interpersonal relations in general. It's a way of trying to get people to away from the mercantile paradigm of exchanging products and getting something in exchange and so on, and try to focus on the coordination process as something where people contribute and have a goal within the process more than an external goal that influences the coordination process. Of course, there are a lot of coordination processes in workplaces and so on that actually do fit the factory paradigm of how a workplace is structured and how you have to work and so on. But I think that the other way of thinking about how people coordinate is it allows for more variation, and it makes it agreeable to talk about having something that you want to do with your work as such. It reintroduces that into how we talk about organization, because there is an extreme amount of theory where if you really boil it down, it's still just a factory paradigm where you think in terms of how much will we profit from this particular type of organizing and this particular type of coordinating. How do we reach an external goal that we have gone into this room to reach together? There's not. I don't think there's enough emphasis on how a coordination process can be contained in itself, or can be something that has a value within itself. So it's a way of, the whole analogy discussion here, the point of that is to draw people's attention to a different aspect of coordination than merely working together for an external goal. I'm not quite sure I understand you. It's a social value in the sense that it will be valuable for the micro-society to value its own actions in a different way than they do. You could say it like that. but really, it's. When I talk about analogies here, it's really a contribution to how we may come to think differently of organization processes as they are. Because, even if you extend to think to situations that aren't traditionally traditionally fit the mercantile paradigm, such as a shop, for instance. You can have people who run a shop who are very, very engaged in what they do and not particularly in profiting from what they do. So, the best stores you can go into are those where people really, the record store where people really are enthusiastic about your choice of music, and if you like that, then you should certainly hear this, and so on. That's the sort of stores you want to return to where you have the feeling that people are genuinely interested in what they're working with, and not just with selling a product, which they are. So it is really a way of trying to change the general focus of how people work, because if I would really love to go into a really hardcore business school, traditional business school, no creative management and so on, and ask people, what do you want to do with your life? And if anyone says that they want to make money, I would want to ask them, well, what do you want to use the money for? I mean, I'm interested in what they really want to do, because I think, I think that everyone has a choice. I mean, the choice you make for what you want to do with your life echoes some other interests than just making money.
Totally agree. I think that's great.
Oh, thanks. Well, I don't. I think. I mean, I'm not quite sure whether there are anyone who has tried to discuss specific music performances in that way. But I certainly think there has been a lot of things done at the organizational level. I mean, at the level of discussing what should this orchestra perform and so on. I mean, you know a lot of these studies or ways of verbalizing the concerns you have regarding what the orchestra or what the ensemble should play, and yeah, I think that's very common. I mean, also if you extend to popular music and so on, it's a very often think of the organizational part of music making, where to play, where to tour, when to put a single out, etc., which is all very much in terms of a mercantile paradigm, for sure. But I'm not quite familiar with any analysis of the music performance. I don't know if you are. I mean, music performances in itself, in terms of selling a product. Well, I've been very sloppy in empirical studies wise, because I have such a long background of playing in orchestras myself, and in specific people that I know who play in professional orchestras and professional ensembles, also within different genres, both jazz and rock and even heavy metal, and so I have a very broad spectrum of references to draw on, and of how I've heard people talk about these things, and of course it would be more weight behind my words if I had also gone out and made a study or a qualitative study of how people feel about these things, but due to limited time and because I am a philosopher, I've weighted the different modes of theory you can use to describe it a bit higher. But I have actually done in a slightly different, with a slightly different goal. I've done some interviews with heavy metal musicians, or with specific heavy metal musicians, because I have also occasionally written for a genre web page called heavymetal.dk as a freelance journalist, and I've gotten to interview some people where I've used the opportunity to fit in some questions that were relevant for me as a researcher, such as how do you relate to composing, and how much do you allow for the other people in the band to interpret what you do, and they actually got some very interesting answers, and some very thorough answers also, that I've been able to use as examples of how you can also think of power relations in an ensemble. So. I mean, and just to address what you may be thinking, the example with the intentions, where I think they say that the musicians all think the same. I mean, it is just. I mean, it's an ideal example, because of course musicians do make mistakes, and sometimes they're not completely drawing the rational consequences of whatever they do. But the idea of that example was simply to show that if we boil things down to a situation where intentions and strategies are what matters, then it becomes really important that people are dedicated to the intentions they have. And that importance, that is of course a postulate, but that importance, I think, is still there even though you have all the other elements of coordination in the situation. So it's actually just a means of highlighting a specific aspect of how coordination processes are. And I have, in my full dissertation, I also have other models of other types of coordination processes that goes on, such as, for instance, reacting or reacting on how likely you think it is that another person will interpret this in this way, or and actually not acting upon what you're sure about, but what you think is statistically most likely. And that's a different way of viewing the situation than just reasoning with what you think, what the possible realm is, which intentions have we not crossed out yet that are possible. So that there are more ways of modeling different aspects of coordination.
Are we finished?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.